My name is Kristen Record. I'm the 2011 Connecticut State Teacher of the Year. I've been a high school physics teacher for 22 years. I teach in Stratford, Connecticut. And my partner here is Katherine Bassett, who can introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Katherine Bassett. I'm the New Jersey State Teacher of the Year 2000 and the former president and CEO of NSTOY. I am currently the executive director of the New Jersey Tutoring Corps, as well as the CEO of my own consulting business, Tall Poppy LLC. It's a delight to be here. We're so thrilled that all of you are joining us. Northern California, Dodea in England, wonderful. Welcome all.
And our Twitter handles are up there on the screen right now, so you can certainly feel free to tweet at us on social media as we go through our presentation today. We are gathered here to talk about resilience and related competencies, what they mean and how to teach them. As we go through various slides, if you have questions, you can sure pop them into the chat box and we'll try to get to them. And we will also be using our chat box today for an unpacking activity that we're going to be doing related to these competencies. So our agenda for our next about 55 minutes together is to do a brief overview of 12 competencies related to 4D education. Specifically, we're going to together unpack resilience, courage, mindfulness, and leadership to get a better understanding of what those competencies are and what other subcompetencies are related to them. We're going to walk you through some research study results related to these competencies, and then we're going to be having a closing activity and sharing out some resources to everyone that's here today. So Katherine, I'm going to pass it off to you.
Thank you. So where do these competencies come from and what do they mean? So in 4D teaching, there are 4 dimensions, and you can see the 4 dimensions on your screen. They are knowledge, skills, character, and meta-learning. The competencies live in 3 of those dimensions: skills, character, and meta-learning. Knowledge is the content knowledge that we bring to our academic disciplines. And in a 4D model of teaching, we are infusing the competencies into our academic content. So as a librarian, how would I teach resilience through library media? So we're going to take a look more closely at each of these competencies and then share some information about where they came from. The Center for Curriculum Redesign is a global engineering and education nonprofit think tank organization. And Kristen, if you want to go to the next slide. CCR spent over 10 years researching these competencies before they even identified them. And they researched them by looking at the frameworks of over 140 different professions, and using what they learned from that research, they identified 12 competencies that form the 4D framework for education. That research, as I said, was conducted over 10 years up until 2019, when there were 2 rounds of studies directly conducted with educators, some of whom may be on this call. Each study round took 1 year. And what we did in those studies was we introduced the competencies to expert educators, and we asked them to unpack them deeply. And we then asked them to infuse these competencies into their academic disciplines. We worked with 8 disciplines: math, ELA, the sciences, the computer sciences, the social studies, fine arts, performing arts, and physical education. We made revisions to the subcompetencies after the 2 rounds of research in 18 and 19 were completed. So let's take a look at these dimensions. The first dimension that we will look at is the skills dimension. And the skills dimension essentially tells us how we use what we know. We know so much. Our heads are stuffed with all kinds of knowledge. But what good does that knowledge do if we aren't utilizing it? And so in the skills dimension, we have 4 competencies that help us to use the knowledge that we have. And they are creativity, critical thinking, communication, and collaboration. I'd like you to take a look at the center box in the screen because each of the subsequent 2 dimensions are set up the same way. On the far left, we see the name of the competency. On the far right, we see things that are included in that competency. And in the center, we see the subcompetencies. So let's take a look at critical thinking. Some things that critical thinking includes are problem solving, analysis, reasoning. And let's take a look at one subcompetency for critical thinking. Considering other points of view is subcompetency number 2. And during this past 18 months, haven't we had to do that on a regular basis? We have had to think about the perspectives of others. We have had to be mindful of how other people's points of view may not agree with ours, but how they are important and can enhance and enrich our own thinking. The second dimension, we skipped one, Kristen.
Sorry.
The second dimension is the one that we're really going to zero in on today, and it's the character dimension, how we behave and engage in the world. And you'll see blue stars on 4 of the competencies that we are going to really focus on this afternoon. So the competencies in the character dimension are mindfulness, curiosity, courage, resilience, ethics, and leadership. And let's take a look at resilience. So what is resilience? Some words that could be synonymous with resilience include perseverance, grit, persistence. There are 5 subcompetencies under resilience. And I want you to look at subcompetency number 1, adapting flexibly. Again, how could any of us have survived these past 18 months if we did not have the capacity to adapt flexibly? And this is something that we have had to teach our students. And we didn't teach it by saying, today we're going to learn to adapt flexibly. We taught it through our content disciplines, by example, by modeling, by embodying what that looked like for our students. The last dimension is meta-learning, and it contains 2 competencies, metacognition and growth mindset. Many teachers tell me that they don't know what metacognition means, so they can't possibly teach it to others. They do know what it means, and we found that out very clearly through data and evidence in our 2 rounds of studies. So as teachers were telling us, I can't teach metacognition, I don't know what that means, they submitted more lessons for metacognition than any other competency. We scored the lessons that were submitted, and the lessons for metacognition scored extremely highly across the board and across all 8 disciplines. So those are the 12 competencies rested within their dimensions.
Okay, so what we're going to be doing next is an activity to unpack the 4 competencies that Katherine indicated before. We are going to start with resilience and what does it mean to us. So in order to do this activity, I'm going to take a moment and I'm going to switch up how I'm doing my screen share. And while I'm doing that, what we're going to do is ask you a series of questions, and you'll be able to respond in the chat box to our various questions. Katherine's going to capture them for me out loud, and I'll be capturing our thinking on the screen live. So I'm going to reshare. All right, so on the screen in front of us, we have the question, what does resilience mean to you? And you can see on the screen the associated qualities, related constructs, and synonyms. When we hear the word resilience, you might also think of perseverance, persistence, and grit. So beyond what is written here on the slide, when you think to yourself, whether it's yourself in your own personal interactions or in talking with students, when you think of being resilient, what does that mean to you? What does it look like? How would you know that someone is being resilient? What might you observe? And you can put your answers into the chat box.
Strength,
Okay.
determination, able to bounce back,
Okay.
not giving up,
Not giving up.
skills,
Say that again.
use of coping skills, unchanged or unwavering. I see a lot of not giving up, the ability to pick yourself up and start over again, working beyond obstacles, flexible, pushing through, being malleable, standing up,
All right.
trying again.
Wavering, flexibility, trying again. Okay. So we have a good list here of what it means to be resilient and what that might look like. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to copy our good ideas and I'm going to carry them forward into our next slide. And on this slide, you can see the 5 subcompetencies that are related to resilience. So adapting flexibly, building strong networks, and so on. What we're going to do is go through each of our ideas, and in the chat box, I want you to call out which number relates to the idea that we are talking about. So in terms of being resilient, the first idea that came through was strength. What number of the subcompetencies, and it could be more than one, pop out at you as being related to having strength?
I see 3, 5, bunch of 5s.
3, 5, bunch of 5s. Okay.
Lots of 5s.
All right. How about determination? Which subcompetencies do you link to determination?
1, 4, 5.
1, 4, 5.
Bunch of 4s. 3.
3. Okay. Yeah, managing stress. Absolutely. All right. What about being able to bounce back? What subcompetencies does that map to?
4, 2, 1, 3. Bunch of 1s. Bunch of 4s. 5.
All right. So 4, 2, 1, 3, 5. That's all of them in not sequential order. Okay. Being able to bounce back requires you to be able to do a lot of different things. How about not giving up? What does that map to?
5. Lots of 5s.
Lots of 5s. Yeah. Not giving up and persevering. Those are good synonyms. Absolutely.
1 also.
1.
4.
4. Yes, I would absolutely say that when you're talking about not giving up, why? What's the purpose of what you're trying to do? Why is it of value? Why would you not want to give up? Absolutely. How about using coping skills? What subcompetencies does that map to?
3 and 5.
3 and 5.
A whole bunch of 3s. 1.
Okay. All right. What about being unchanged or unwavering.
4,
4, okay.
5, 3,
5, 3. And how about picking yourself up and being able to try again?
5,
5,
bunch of 5s, 1,
1,
bunch of 1s, 3, 4,
3, 4. Okay. And how about the ability to be flexible? Flexibility, what does that map to? Other than 1.
1. Lots of 1s and a 3.
Lots of 1s and a 3. And then the last one we had was pushing through.
Also a 5, Kristen.
Also what?
A 5.
5. Okay, so for pushing through, we're gonna 5, persevere.
5s.
Mm-hmm.
Bunch of 5s.
Bunch of 5s, okay. All right, so now we are going to take our ideas and how they've mapped to the subcompetencies, and I'm gonna pull this through into our next slide. And based on the exercise that we just went through, I want to come up with a sentence or two. Some of you I know are good at 6-word sentences. I'm not so good at 6-word sentences, but we're looking for a good sentence or two to capture what is the heart of resilience based off of our ideas and how they mapped to the subcompetencies. So if someone wants to be brave and drop a summary idea into the chat box. Katherine, I'll let you peruse and hone in on something.
Looking at what we identified. So these are our words. How would we identify resilience? Having strength and determination to succeed. Being able to stand strong and hold fast. Determined to cope through strength and flexibility.
All right, so how about this? Having strength and determination to succeed while standing strong, holding fast, and being flexible.
I think that sounds like a good summary of what our participants identified.
All right, fantastic. Great job, everybody. Okay, so we're now going to move on to our next competency that is related to resilience, and that is the competency of having courage. So we can see that resilience right there is an associated quality of having courage, as are perseverance, persistence, and toughness. And often if you said, what does it mean to have courage? You would say that means being brave, being confident, and being able to take a risk. So we're gonna work through the same process again and ask ourselves, if someone is demonstrating courage, what does that mean, or what might we be able to observe about that person who is exhibiting courage? And if you can put your ideas in the chat box.
Doing what is right over what is popular, confident and unafraid, vulnerability, brave, being ethical, staying in your square.
Staying in your square?
Staying in your square.
Okay.
Another, being vulnerable. Doing something even when one is scared or afraid. Having the integrity to stand up for what is right.
All right, do you want to take one more thought?
It's an action. Being honest when others are not. I love that.
Being
Honest
honest.
when others are not.
All right, that is an excellent last thought to carry forward. All right, so we are now going to map our ideas into the 3 subcompetencies of courage. So standing up for values, engaging with others while being vulnerable, and pursuing ambitious goals despite certain types of risks to ourselves. So doing what is right over what might be popular. What numbers does that map to?
2, lots of 2s, a whole slew of 2s.
Okay, whole slew of 2s. All right, having vulnerability. I'm gonna go with 3 on that one, right?
1,
1,
bunch of 1s.
okay. And how about being brave?
2, 1, 1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3. Okay, hit all of them. And what about being ethical?
2. 1,
1, okay. And how about staying in your square?
2,
That's what I was thinking too.
couple of 2s.
All right, what about doing something even if you're scared or afraid?
1 and 2.
1 and 2.
1 and 3.
1 and 3. Okay, so 1, 2, and 3. So being brave and doing something even if you're scared or afraid, map to all 3 of those subcompetencies. We said courage was the having the integrity to do what is right. What does that map to?
2,
2, 1,
bunch of 2s.
bunch of 2s. Okay. And how about our last excellent idea, being honest when others are not?
2, 2, 2, 2, 2.
All right.
2.
I'm gonna throw in a 3 for myself. I think that it takes, you have to be vulnerable if you're gonna do that.
There's a couple 3s now.
All right, a couple of 3s. Okay, so we are now going to take our excellent ideas that we have mapped to the 3 subcompetencies of courage, and we're going to come up with a summary statement for what is the heart of courage. So take a moment, think about our good ideas, how we mapped them, and let's craft together a good sentence or 2 that is the heart of courage.
Sarah says, I think courage could be a good word of focus for the 21-22 school year.
I agree. On so many levels. And I think you said it was Kara that said that. I think that for a lot of us, whether we are educators in schools or thinking about our students, for a lot of us, simply having the courage to come back into a physical learning environment is going to be a big thing that we all have to address in August and September. All right, how about a summary statement? Where are we at with crafting this? The heart of courage.
Courage is seen being brave, standing up while staying in your square. I learned this the hard way. I think that when it comes to courage, we learn a lot of things the hard way, don't we?
I agree with that, absolutely.
And I think that a lot of what I'm looking at is really talking about being willing to be vulnerable. I don't know if that fits in at all.
Mm-hmm.
So doing something, even if you're scared or afraid, that's being vulnerable. Being brave, put your values into action for others.
Okay, so we have that the heart of courage is being brave, standing up while staying in your square, and having the strength to be vulnerable while putting your values into action for others. I think that's a really good summary of what it means to be courageous. Thank you. All right. Our next competency is mindfulness. And you can see that associated qualities of mindfulness are being caring, sharing, and showing compassion. When we talk about the word mindfulness, some synonyms that might come to mind are self-reflection, self-awareness, observation, and we often think about mindfulness as being authentic, being accepting, and having patience. So again, we're going to ask the question, when you think of what mindfulness means to you, or if you are observing someone who is being mindful in a situation, what does that look like? What might we observe? How might we characterize this?
Tyra says aware, reflective practitioner, understanding the feelings and emotions within you, keeping the keen eye, listener, conscious, positive affirmations, being honest about your own emotions, thinking before acting, being empathetic and compassionate toward yourself and others. Just catch up for a second.
Okay, thank
Being
you.
aware and intentional of your personal narrative.
Say that one more time.
Being aware and intentional of your personal narrative. And one last good thought is connecting to your whole being.
Ooh, that's profound. Okay, thank you for these excellent ideas. And I am going to, stop moving the this box around and try to click back into it. Hang on a second. There we go. Okay, so we are going to copy these into our mapping slide. So The competency of mindfulness has 4 subcompetencies that deal with attending to our body and our emotions and reactions, understanding and being able to describe emotions and reactions, having habits of regulation, and cultivating positivity, open-mindedness, patience, and compassion. So we can already see some of the words that were our own ideas reflected in these subcompetencies. So let's start with being aware. If you are aware, what subcompetency does that map to?
1s and 2.
1s and 2s.
4.
4.
More 1s and another 4.
Okay, so 1s, 2s, and 4s. And how about being a reflective practitioner?
3 and 4.
3 and 4.
Did you get 1?
I got 1. Okay. And how about our next idea, understanding feelings and emotions?
2.
2.
A 1.
1.
Lots of 1s and 2s.
All right, that makes a lot of sense to me. All right, so moving on, keeping a keen eye. Keeping a keen eye.
1s.
1.
4.
4. I'm going to put down 3. That speaks to me there.
You don't get to put stuff down.
Sure I do. I can keep a keen eye. All right, moving to our own idea of positive affirmations.
4.
That's a 4. Okay, what else?
Bunch of 4s. 2, 3.
2 and 3. I'm glad somebody put down 2, otherwise I'd have to do it.
Couple of 2s.
All right, good. All right, and if we move on to our next one, being honest about your own feelings and emotions.
Bunch of 2s. 2, 2, 2.
2s, okay.
3.
3.
1.
1. And how about moving on to thinking before acting?
I loved this one.
Me too.
1. Couple of 1. 3, 2, 4.
All right.
Got 4 there.
So we have 1 through 4 there. Thinking before acting requires all of those bits and pieces. That's hard. Thinking before acting is a really tough thing to do sometimes. All right, speaking of tough things to do, having compassion towards others and self. And I really think the and self part is important to call out in that thought.
I was thrilled to see that there. 1, 2, 3, 4.
All right, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, it takes a lot of skills to be compassionate towards both others and ourselves. I agree with that wholeheartedly. Next one, being intentional about your personal narrative. That's a deep thought.
2.
2.
2, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4.
1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so 2, 3, 4, and 1. We'll go with that. Okay. And then our last thought together as a group was connecting to your whole being.
1, 2, 4.
1, 2, and 4.
Ones. Another 1, 2, 4.
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4.
All right. I'm glad somebody else put down 3 because I was going to do it too. Excellent. Okay. So we are going to take our ideas and our mapping and think for a moment about what is the heart of mindfulness. So if we think through all of our ideas and what was called out in the 4 subcompetencies, we're looking to wordsmith a sentence or 2 here.
Being honest, intentional, and
What was the last word you said?
compassionate.
Compassionate.
To be mindful, one must have reflective practice through compassion and connection to self and others, and then being connected to one's inner self.
Okay. So I have that the heart of mindfulness is being honest, intentional, and compassionate while being reflective about self and others.
And then I have focused intentionally on one's awareness of the present moment, and awareness, empathy, and reflection.
So being aware of the present moment. And say the part again about reflection.
Awareness, empathy, and reflection. So maybe you want to say with empathy and reflection.
Okay, so I think we have a really excellent understanding of what it means to be mindful, being honest, intentional, and compassionate while being reflective about self and others, and being aware of the present moment with empathy and reflection. I think that we can understand why being mindful is difficult. Go ahead.
I think that your being in the moment fits in well with being aware of the present moment. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, I think so. Okay. All right. So our last competency that we picked out that was related to being resilient and resilience is leadership. So when we think of leadership, we often think of supervision, having authority. We think of an organization structure or a management structure. We think that leaders often have charisma, they're engaged, they might be humble, conscientious, and goal-orientated, results-orientated, and we think of leaders as being dependable and accountable. So in our group, we're going to talk about now, what does leadership mean to us? And if we were observing someone who is a leader, and we can decide for ourselves what kind of leader that might be, what would you observe? What would you be able to see about that person? How do you know that someone is exhibiting leadership?
Rajiv says that they're a visionary, they're a reflective risk taker, they support, so many, hold on. They support others in their own growth, which I think is critical. They're an influencer. They can see the big picture. They are mission driven, pardon me. They are a reflective listener. They know how to plan and be accountable. Flexible yet firm. They align their team to goals.
All right, and how about one more good idea? I may have missed something that you already said.
Competence and compassion, and the last word is learner, which I love.
So a competent and compassionate learner. Okay, so
And we
I'm
see that again in the very last comment. So I think learner is important.
okay, yep. So I have that. Okay, so as you might guess, being a leader or exhibiting leadership has 7 different components to it, or 7 subcompetencies. Leaders determine challenges and set goals, manage power ethically, think strategically, evaluate outcomes, and can adapt. They respect colleagues, collaborating with others. Being a leader or exhibiting leadership means that you can contribute to a broader group or community, and you inspire others and sharing a vision. So how perfect that being visionary was our first idea. So I will start us off by putting down a 7 next to being visionary.
Also a 3.
A 3.
Another 7.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to put down 1 to be visionary, set goals.
Somebody else put down 1, 2.
Good job. All right.
I think you can move on.
Okay. And how about being a reflective risk taker?
4.
4.
3.
3.
6.
6. Oops, that's not 6. That's a 6.
I feel like I'm calling out big numbers. 2.
It's lucky it's not letters and numbers. Okay, let's move on to our next idea of supporting others in their own growth.
7.
7. 6.
Another 7, a 5. Another 6.
Okay.
3.
3. Okay.
4.
4. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right, moving on to being an influencer. What does that map to? Being an influencer.
7.
7.
Bunch of 7s.
Mm-hmm.
6.
6.
2.
2. That's important. I'm going to put down a 3.
And then mission driven.
Mission driven.
6. Bunch of 6s.
A lot of 6s, yes.
7.
7.
1.
1.
5.
5. Okay. Our next good idea was that leadership means you can plan and be accountable.
3 and 4. Bunch of
3, 4. A bunch of what?
threes.
Okay.
2,
2,
7,
7, I'm going to put down a 6. Being accountable to a group or a community is important. Okay, if we move on to our next idea, that leadership means being both flexible and firm.
4, 5,
4 and 5.
another 4,
Mm-hmm.
3,
3.
another 3,
Okay.
2,
2. Okay, and how about leadership as a means to align a team to goals? What does that map to?
6,
6,
7,
7,
4,
4,
3,
3.
several threes,
Mm-hmm. I'm going to put down a 1 to set the goal. And then our last good idea was that leadership means being a competent and compassionate learner. How does that map to our 7 subcompetencies?
I think 5. Oh, good. Brigitte does too. 5, 3,
3,
more threes, 2,
2.
yes.
Absolutely. Okay, so I will now take our ideas and our maps to the subcompetencies and give everyone a moment or two to think about what's at the heart of leadership. So if you look at the list of our ideas and what we just mapped to the 7 subcompetencies, what is a sentence or two that summarizes what it means to have leadership or to be a leader?
A compassionate learner who is reflective, visionary, and a risk taker while encouraging others along the way. And Rajiv adds, so we've got visionary,
Oh, wait, you have to say that one again because that was long. Compassionate learner who is
reflective, visionary, and a risk taker while encouraging others along the way. And Rajiv is adding accountable and mission driven.
okay. So a compassionate learner who is reflective, who is a reflective, visionary risk taker, who encourages others and is accountable and mission driven. What do we think about that wordsmithing of our statement? The heart of leadership is a compassionate learner who is a reflective visionary and risk taker who encourages others and is accountable and mission driven. Okay, that looks excellent to me. Okay, so I am going to, now that we've gone through our 4 competencies, I am going to switch off and I'm going to screen share back into full screen mode. So if you give me a moment to switch my modes with you and go back into our slide deck. Okay, so Katherine, if you could now take us through looking at some research.
I'm going to go very quickly through this. So in the 2 rounds of research that we conducted, we actually did essentially what you just did with the teacher teams with whom we worked. We worked across the 8 disciplines that I already mentioned, and each team had between 5 and 7 members. There was at least 1 elementary, 1 middle, 1 secondary, and 1 teacher preparation person on each team. And we had over 60 people in the 2 rounds. And so at the end of the studies, we asked a number of questions. And one of those questions was, which competencies, and we asked them to pick 4, were the easiest to infuse into your content teaching. So remember, this is across all 8 disciplines right now. And you can see the stars. So you can see that mindfulness, courage, resilience, and leadership were not judged to be particularly easy to infuse into content or discipline teaching. And when we asked the educators in the study which were the most difficult to infuse, you can see mindfulness, courage, resilience, and leadership popping up as some of the most difficult to infuse into their teaching. Why do you think that is? Any ideas about why that might be? I'll tell you what the easiest ones to infuse were: critical thinking, collaboration, communication, and I believe curiosity. Any thoughts about why these 4 were so difficult to infuse into the teaching of math, phys ed, fine arts, etc.? Requires a level of transparency, Tyra. Absolutely. Yes, it does. It actually requires courage to infuse these things into our discipline teaching. What you're looking at now is a slide that shows in the middle column what the researchers, possible cultural differences in values. Yes, Lynn, I agree wholeheartedly. In the middle column, you see from the researchers who analyzed the findings of these 2 studies, what they believed in looking at the lessons that were submitted were the easiest to infuse. So looking at those lessons, they saw resilience, mindfulness being easy to infuse, and courage and leadership being difficult. The practitioners themselves, so the educators themselves, said that resilience was in the top 4, while mindfulness, leadership, and courage were in the bottom 4 across the board. And so the consensus that the researchers drew from looking at their own scores and the input from educators are that resilience falls into the top 4, whereas mindfulness, courage, and leadership fall into the bottom 4. And I'm missing a lot of what's happening in the chat box. Yes, this SEL stuff isn't for me, is what we do here from a lot of teachers, not just STEM teachers. And so what we've been trying to do is to help people understand what this SEL stuff means by breaking it down the way that we just did, so that they can look and say, oh, I actually do teach that in my lessons. This isn't hard. I already am doing it.
All right, so I was reminded by our tech host that we potentially have a literal hard stop at 2:45, which is when they might actually literally shut down the Zoom meeting. So as part of our closing, we wanted to share resources with you. First, a set of posters of the 4 competencies that we unpacked with you that are in student-friendly language. The 2 published papers on the research studies that Katherine mentioned, and then a really excellent overview of the 4D teaching framework that has all of the color-coded charts that we went through on the beginning slides about all 12 of the competencies. It's in a 5-pager that is all there. I've dropped the link into the chat once, and I've just, oops, sorry, Jesse, I spammed you unintentionally in a DM. Hold on. Dropping the folder in there for you. So there's a collection of resources for you that we hope that you'll be able to take with you, share with your colleagues, and use in whatever it is that you're going to be doing with kids in schools and learning in the fall.
And definitely download and print out the posters. I think you'll find them very helpful.
Absolutely. They're the kid-friendly language is very good in that. And so finally, what we would just like you to do in the last probably literal 90 seconds that we have right now is if you could drop 1 to 3 words to describe how this experience was for you into the chat box.
Will we be getting today's presentation?
I will PDF it and put it into that file for everyone, and it'll have obviously the copies of all of the work and our ideas. I didn't PDF it in the beginning because I wanted to be able to share the literal thinking that went on in the group today. So that'll be in there by 3 o'clock, 3 o'clock Eastern time.
Leave. That would be wonderful.
Thanks, Lynn. I appreciate that compliment. It was a little strange not having you all be able to talk to us. So we enjoyed having you here. Thank you so much. And I believe our contact information is in the conference program. And certainly you have our Twitters, so you can DM us or, just add us on Twitter, and we're happy to chat with you. Katherine, maybe you want to drop your email address into the chat box, and I'll do the same. So I'm Record K at stratk12.org, and Katherine is Katherine at tallpoppy.us. And you're welcome, everyone. They don't shut us down. We're happy to stay and chat for another minute or 2, but if they shut us down, have a great rest of your summit.
It was so nice to see so many of you and to see so many new friends, and thank you for being here.
Lynn, we don't have the ability to do that. Or wait, it was Pat Jordan. Pat Jordan, we don't have the ability to turn your videos on because this isn't a webinar format only.
Hello, I just wanted to say hello.
Hi.
Good to see you. Thank you. Outstanding session.
Thank you, Pat. It's lovely to hear your voice.
Yes, it is.
Thanks, you guys, for all the resources and the great session. We appreciate it.
Yes, thank you. Have a great day.
You.
You as well. Thanks for being here.